I'm Sume and I'm 11 years old. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Makeshift Homeschool. Makeshift Homeschool is a platform where young people around the country use their unique strengths and passions to create projects to share with the world. Hi, in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to use the widget GridView. GridView is one of the widgets like list view and column and row where it can hold multiple children and formats it. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to run my app, and I just made a new app. So right now what I have is the default Flutter app, which is the first thing that pops up what pops up when you first make a Flutter application. And what it is basically just an app that has a counter where when you click a button, then it adds 1. Okay. And now, as you can see, this is the Flutter demo app. And what I'm going to do is I'm first going to make a new .dart file. This is just so I can keep things organized. And so the first thing that you're always going to do when you make a new .dart file is import material.dart. And then after I do that, I'm going to make the stateless widget, and the shortcut for that is to just do STLES and then hit the tab button. I'm going to call this widget, the stateless widget home. And so basically what I'm doing right here is I'm making a new screen. Now, right now, as you can see, it doesn't show this new screen. And the reason why is because I need to change it so that my home is now going to be home instead of my home page. Now, since we're not showing my home page, I can now just delete that page because we're not going to be using it. So now we just have a blank screen. What I'm going to quickly do is just make a scaffold with an app bar and then just a blank screen so I can show you guys the widget GridView. The title is going to be a text widget that says home. Now I'm going to make the body, and the body is going to be a container. And the reason why I'm doing a container instead of just a grid view by itself is because container has a property called padding, which makes it so that I can do edge insets.all 10. And what this does, basically makes it so that there are going to be 10 pixels around the entire screen. And so that just makes it so that nothing's smushed up against the side, which I like. So now I'm going to call the widget GridView, and then I'm going to say gridview.count. Now, there are several things that we have to do before we can start adding things to the grid view, one of which is cross-axis count. I'm going to set this at 3. Basically, what this means is, and what GridView does is it's basically a widget that formats things into a grid. So this is something that you'll see, and basically what cross-axis count means is how many grid boxes you want in every single in every row. So with the grid, you have different rows and columns, and this is basically specifying how many things you want in any given row. So now there's 2 more things we have to do. One is cross-axis spacing, which is basically how many spaces you want in between the different grid boxes in your row. So I'm just going to say cross-axis spacing is just going to be 10. And then the last thing we have to do is main axis spacing. Oopsies. Main axis spacing, which is also going to be 10. So we're just going to have 10 pixels in between every single grid box. And so now we can start putting things into our grid view. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a bunch of different containers. And so what the container is going to have, it's going to have padding with edge insets.all with 8 pixels. And then I'm just going to specify the colors, and it's going to be colors.teal 100. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make 8 more of these containers and show you how it will automatically format it. Is that 9? I'm pretty sure. Format it into a grid into a grid. So now I'm just going to change the color of this so that it slowly gets darker. Okay, so yes, we have 9. Awesome. So now if I refresh this, it automatically formats all these boxes into a grid. And that's the most useful thing about grid view, is that you don't have to, if you were to do this without a grid view, you would have to have a column with 3 rows. And that is going to be a lot more code, because you're going to have to specify, you're also going to have to make it so that all the rows have a sized box between them, and you'll have to do a lot of playing around to make it so that you get these nice even spaces between all the grid boxes. So grid view is kind of like one of these widgets, like list view and column, where you have multiple children, except grid view does some more formatting, whereas with, like, if you just were to call a column, for example, then it would only do formatting and put widgets inside a column, whereas with grid view, there's a lot more formatting involved, as you can see with all these different properties you can do. There are some other properties that you can add to grid view, although this is kind of the most basic ones that you'll need to know, is the cross-axis count, cross-axis spacing, main axis spacing, and children. And what this is going to do is, just to go over this again, cross-axis count is putting these 3 in a row. If I were to change this to 2 and refresh it, then there would only be 2 boxes in every row, and that just goes, and that is why, and then you can just play around with however many boxes you want in every row. And also there's a cross-axis spacing, which is putting the spacing in between these rows, and then main axis spacing is putting it in between these. So if I change main axis spacing, and if I double that, and I say 20, oh, never mind. So main axis spacing is actually putting it in between these, and cross-axis spacing is over here. So now, as you can see, main axis spacing is twice as much as cross-axis spacing, which is why there's more space between these rows than the columns. So if I were to make this very big, then there would be very tiny boxes. So you can kind of play around with how you want your grid view to look like, if you want really big spaces, or if you want kind of just small spaces in between all your different boxes, whether or not you want 3 boxes inside every row, or whether or not you want 4 or 5 or 2. You can just play around with how you want to do this. And so I'm going to be uploading videos about a bunch of different Flutter widgets that you might want to use. Yeah.